Goeiedag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world. And there's a wonderful old English saying: when you go to bed with dogs, you wake up with fleas. And the ANC is so flea-infested today, the carcass is almost unrecognizable. And the carcass is what used to be a vibrant South African economy. And of course, Ramaphosa has done absolutely nothing to help get South Africa out of the bind it's been in ever since Zuma cast his shadow over the presidency. It's a complete disgrace. Black economic empowerment, all these affirmative action policies, they are destroying South Africa. And this has now been recognized globally. So I need to tell you what's happening. Pressure is mounting on President Cyril Ramaphosa to stabilize the government's shaky finances and rescue an economy teetering on the brink of recession. Since taking office in February last year, Ramaphosa has repeatedly pledged to ignite growth and reverse 9 years of misrule by his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. Now remember, Ramaphosa was the deputy president, so we're expecting too much. He was clearly in on the deals. Ramaphosa's ability to undertake reforms has been constrained by an ANC faction that wants the government to play a greater role in the economy, and by powerful labour unions opposed to job cuts, among other things. So that's COSATU, who basically got Eskom by the balls. Warnings that South Africa is on the precipice have come from the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, the World Bank, business executives and economists from Absa Bank Limited, and other leaders. Even Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has taken to Twitter to vent his frustration at the slow pace of reform. The IMF said the following when Ramaphosa took office: market expectations for growth-enhancing reforms were high. They said that in a January the 30th statement. However, sluggish implementation and persistent policy uncertainty did not validate those expectations, and business confidence is now close to all-time lows. And we know that a lot of doors are being closed right now, and the coronavirus is not helping that situation at all. What did the World Bank have to say? Let's hear. The World Bank said on the 8th of January, weak growth momentum has reflected an array of overlapping constraints. These include persistent policy uncertainty, constrained fiscal space, subdued business confidence, infrastructure bottlenecks, especially in electricity supply, and weakening external demand, particularly from the euro area and China. What about Absa economist Peter Worthington and Mialani Maluleke? Well, they said in a joint statement, in addition to clean governance, South Africa needs better economic policies in the form of structural reforms across a broad set of activities and sectors. Frustrations continue to mount about a perceived slow pace of change. What about Sibenya Gold CEO Neil Froneman? Well, he said, I know that our president inherited a very difficult situation, but to be clear and blunt, he also hasn't made some of the difficult decisions that need to be made. It's time the government acted in the national interest and not in the interests of the one party, i.e. the ANC. Now we get to Tito Mboweni, the finance minister. And he says, if you cannot effect deep structural economic reforms, then it's game over. Structural economic reforms inertia is frustrating. Let's get on with it. Movement, many steps at a time. Ramaphosa says he's committed to getting the economy on track, clamping down on graft, making the government more efficient. He can point to some progress since taking office, including appointing a new chief prosecutor and head of SARS, and replacing the boards and management of several state-owned enterprises. That's gone nowhere, has it? Completely pear-shaped. He's also embarked on a drive to attract $100 billion in new investment over 5 years, with a substantial portion of that already committed. Committed, but it's not going to happen, guys. South Africa's going down the gurgler, and you'll see why in a second. Political analyst Ralph Matega cautions that Ramaphosa hasn't gone far enough, largely because he is pandering to competing interests within the ANC, which has ruled South Africa for 25 years. Unfortunately, Matega said, the president is going to fail everyone equitably if he doesn't take a position. He is seen as not to be willing to pick a fight. I think we're having a presidency here that is resigning itself to be a crisis manager instead of a reformer. And of course, the problem that Ramaphosa has got is the fracturing within the ANC. We're talking about Ace Magashula, the Jacob Zuma faction, all these different factions that are coming into play right now in the National Executive Committee of the ANC. Ramaphosa's office didn't respond to a request for comment. The government is committed to fostering economic growth, creating jobs, turning state companies around, and ensuring it appoints suitably qualified people, he told leaders of the ANC in Pretoria on January the 20th. Ramaphosa said, we've been frank about the extent of the difficulties in our country. We acknowledge where we have fallen short in the implementation of our policies and have devised realistic measures to address these. What a load of crap. You know, if they made an example of some of the senior politicians who are so corrupt and put them behind bars, maybe that would slow down what's going on in South Africa a bit. They'll think twice before they put their hands in the till, right at the top. And what's the outcome of all this? Well, it's a no-brainer. Moodys is going to be having a look at the rand at the end of this month, the end of February. And my advice to people is get your money out of the rand, whether it be gold, silver, other currencies, get it out the rand. Because if the rand is put down to junk, which is highly likely, on the 1st of March by Moodys, the rand is going to just drop like a stone. Okay, let's hear what's happening in this particular area. Finance Minister Tito Mboweni has a tough task ahead of him, convincing rating agency Moodys that despite a review in South Africa's outlook from stable to negative in November, it should not be downgraded to junk status in the near future. And yet the country retains a giant albatross around its neck in the form of its ailing power utility, Eskom, whose CEO recently warned that the spectre of load shedding would not be disappearing anytime soon. Eskom, despite an evolving long-term strategy to turn around its fortunes, continues to pose a great threat to South Africa's economy, making it even more likely that South Africa will be downgraded to junk status in the coming months. The ongoing load shedding affecting the entire country is a clear indication that the power utilities problems are far from over. Over the years, Eskom has received billions in bailouts, and yet its predicament continues to worsen. New Chief Executive Andre de Ruyter has his work cut out. With debts of some 450 billion rand and a legacy of corruption and maladministration, the utilities' operating costs are too high, and it does not generate enough cash to pay the interest on its debts. It has also failed to maintain its power systems and construct effective new power systems in time to meet the country's growing demand. All this we know, but it does not change the devastating impact. The manufacturing industry is sustaining heavy losses as manufacturers are forced to stop production during power cuts, while their costs and deadlines do not stop. Manufacturing, meanwhile, despite being in decline for some years, accounts for about 14% of GDP in South Africa, which has a severe knock-on economic effect. The agricultural industry has been similarly impacted, with farmers dependent on electricity for farming activities, which in turn has a knock-on effect for consumers, who rely on irrigation and energy-intensive industries to produce some 25% of their food. Now, talking about farmers, what about the drought? The drought has had a huge impact on farming communities. Look at Bultfontein, absolutely devastating in the Free State, absolutely shocking. In November, Moodys affirmed South Africa's long-term foreign and local currency debt rating as Baa3-, the lowest investment grade level, despite the adjustment to the country's outlook. The rating agency also slashed South Africa's economic growth outlook for 2020 from 1.5% to just 1%. It also recently gave Mboweni until the February budget, that's this month, to deliver a plan to stabilize government debt and address risks posed by unstable state-owned enterprises, mainly Eskom and the fiscus, or face a downgrade to junk. November also saw Standard & Poor's changing its outlook on South Africa, citing a growing debt burden. S&P noted the crystallization of contingent liabilities related to state-owned enterprises, especially Eskom. Fitch similarly has South African on a negative outlook. Government is running out of time to convince investors and rating agencies that it has the situation in the country in general, and Eskom in particular, under control. Power cuts that continue to be implemented make it difficult for South Africa to escape the prospect of a credit rating downgrade to junk in a few months to come. A credit rating downgrade to junk status will affect South Africa in so many ways. The cost of borrowing will increase, making it difficult to many South Africans to borrow money from banks. International funds will take money out of South Africa, resulting in a significant amount of capital leaving the country. Thirdly, the rand will weaken and goods will cost more. Treasury could find itself forced to increase taxes in order to draw money into the fiscus. Lastly, Treasury might even be forced to cut social grants in order to repay its debt. For already cash-strapped citizens awaiting the finance minister's budget with bated breath and wondering how their finances will be affected, it's a prospect too ghastly to contemplate. All the attention is now on Finance Minister Tito Mboweni's budget speech presentation that will be delivered in February. One can only hope that the minister will be able to provide a comprehensive plan that will effectively stabilize government debt and address risks posed by state-owned enterprises like Eskom. That will be welcomed by foreign investors and rating agencies. Now, the Achilles heel of the ANC government is that it is tied up completely with the South African Communist Party and the Labour trade union movement of COSATU. It's like the triumvirate, the three of them sort of like working together. And the Communist Party and COSATU are just digging the daggers into the back of the ANC because they're not going to let go of their position. And that's why South Africa is set to fail. All right, guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed. Ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video. Please share this video. And above all, please stay safe.